I had talks with several teams, and he was going to be drafted. Several teams said they were going to draft him.
KAI Sotto sure na magpapadraft na sa 2022 NBA Draft. Magandang araw mga idol. Kumusta? At pag-usapan naman po natin ngayon ang tungkol sa nalalapit na 2022 NBA Draft kung saan ay planong magpapadraft na si KAI Sotto. Ayon sa mga nakalap ng inyong lingkod sa usapan nila Gretchen HO ng One Sports at KAI Sotto, nasa goal ngayon ni KAI Sotto ang 2022 NBA Draft. Well mga idol, base din sa interview ng programang Play It Right nila Quinito Henson at Dyan Castillejo kina KAI Sotto at Adelaide 36Ers coach CJ Bruton ay nabanggit ni KAI Sotto na magdedesisyon siya diumano pagkatapos ng 2022 NBL season kung saan ay nakatakda sa Abril ngayong taon. Sa aking palagay, sa mga nagdududa pa sa kakayahan ni KAI Sotto para magpa-draft ngayong 2022, huwag na kayong mag-alala pagkat kumpara sa mga regular na college players na galing US-NCAA, masubok na si KAI Sotto sa professional na laruan at sapat na iyon na patunay na kayang-kaya niya maglaro sa NBA. In fact, ang NBL Australia ngayon ay ang pinagkukunan na ng mga NBA teams tulad na lamang nila Melo Ball at Josh Giddey na mula sa NBL ay diretso na sa NBA at ngayon sila ang mga itinuturing na rising stars ng pinakasikat na liga sa mundo. Kung tungkol naman sa pangambang baka ma-undrafted si KAI Sotto, para sa akin ay hindi mangyayari iyon dahil ayon na mismo sa kampo ni KAI Sotto sa pamamagitan ng agent na si Joel Bell. Noon pa nga lang 2021 ay may mga NBA teams na nanais makuha si KAI, subalit hindi pa sa eligible ng mga panahong iyon dahil kagagraduate lamang nito sa high school. Kaya naman ay napagdesisyonan nito na mag-NBL na muna.
When KAI was ruled that he was not going to be able to be in the 2021 draft, it was kind of a surprise to a lot of people. As his NBA agent, I had talks with several teams, and he was going to be drafted. Several teams said they were going to draft him. We don't know what spot yet because he hadn't gotten that far. It was still quite a ways to the draft, but obviously that's off the table at this point because he's not eligible for the 2021 draft. So we decided to look at obviously other opportunities for him. We did it very quietly, we did it very discreetly. We think that's the best way to do things. And after a pretty intensive negotiation with a lot of people, it was determined that the best spot for KAI Sotto to play next season is with the Adelaide 36Ers of the Australian Basketball League.
Sa top management na rin mismo ng Adelaide 36ers at ng NBL ay sila mismo ang nagsasabing maraming NBA agents ang tumatawag at nagtatanong tungkol kay KAI Sotto. Patunay na inaantay lamang nila itong magpa-draft.
And coming into next season, there's a number of players from the current roster that's contracted. We've got Daniel Johnson, who's coming back, Sunday Dech, and Isaac Humphries, as well as a very special player. I think he's a special restricted player there, KAI Sotto. I'm excited to hear about the team, how you see it developing for next season, and what you can tell us about this exciting young player that you've got there by the name of KAI Sotto.
Well, the KAI Sotto, story is, an epic kind of chapter in its own right, and he hasn't even played yet. It's quite amazing the impact that one's had, and there is a lot of, I guess, backstory to how that occurred. But essentially, Joel Bell, his agent, and I were able to get together, and we had worked successfully on some other players in the past, and this one, sort of took that to another level. He was highly pursued by many agents, and in fact, at the time that I was talking to Joel about KAI, Joel hadn't even secured KAI. So what occurred was that Joel, in part, secured KAI because of the opportunity in Australia rather than vice versa, rather than Joel securing Kai and then presenting the opportunity in Australia. We essentially helped with the recruitment of Kai to Joel by actually having a pathway that Joel could say, look, this Australian route for you could be really, really good. Here's some kids that have done it. Here's some success stories that have occurred, whether it's Brian Bowen, who's on a two-way contract, whether it's Josh Giddey, whether it's other guys that have come through the league and made the NBA, after playing here, or imports, in fact, that have played here, honed their game and are out there, today winning NBA games like a Torrey Craig. The NBA is now aware of the NBL as a pathway either for young players or veteran players that can use our league as a stepping stone back. And Kai has longer-term ambitions to be an NBA guy. So his agent, a veteran agent, has represented many NBA players in Joel Bell, was able to basically make a compelling case to Kai to say, look, here's a pathway that we can construct for you. Would you like to do this? And that was a big part in sort of how this ended up well for Joel ending up with Kai. So that's a bit of an untold story. It's a great thing to be part of. Now, as far as what Kai can do in the short term in this league, our expectations are really, really modest because he's a 19-year-old guy. He's starting out his journey. He's a huge, towering figure. He's now 7'3" without shoes. And, he's out there in Asian qualifiers and he's playing in what could be described, compared to the NBL standard, in fairly modest environments, right? Yeah. So he's not yet seen the full force of going against a Jarrell Martin, or going against somebody that's going to be an absolute handful. How's he going to do against, Colton Iverson? These are legitimate questions, or an AJ Ogilvy that gives him a nice, hey, welcome to Wollongong bump on a screen. Those things,
because he had an opportunity with the NBA's G League Ignite team, didn't he? But I don't think he actually got to play too much. Is that right?
He didn't. That's part of the thing. He didn't end up having an opportunity that perhaps they anticipated, and he did sign to the Ignite, but the opportunity didn't really present itself. And I'm not sure of all the particulars of that story, but yes, he had planned to play for the Ignite. I think the Ignite ended up being fairly focused on a few other players, which is totally understandable. I think a number of those will be in this year's draft. But yes, it was the case that he was going to go to the Ignite, which is obviously what we're hearing about Dyson Daniels doing. And I think it's by the way, the Ignite is an absolute counterpunch to the NBL in terms of the NBL Next Stars. That's what the Ignite really is about, and that again is another topic. But Kai is at the start of his journey, so our expectations are modest, they're reasonable, but we're supportive of KAI Sotto, and we think that KAI Sotto in the longer term is going to develop into a really good player. And we think that Connor Henry, Jamie Perlman, and our other staff, including our strength and conditioning coach, because he will be a huge part of this, will be really significant in the development of Kai. We're really excited. We understand from marketing people and from various social media platforms, including some of Australia's bigger basketball social media platforms, that his page impressions, his unique views, his following is off the charts compared to anything that the NBL has actually seen before, and yet he has not played a game yet. Yeah. And so, there's an incredible story around that, and it's well chronicled that there's 103 million people in the Philippines, of which pretty much 103 million people seem to care about basketball. So it's an amazing thing, and we expect to see lots of people watching to see what Kai does. But make no mistake, while it's been widely touted as something that is a very interesting proposition commercially, we've recruited Kai under the belief that he can get better, and that one day we can help him get to the next level in the same way as we did Josh Giddey. But it won't be the same path, and it won't be the same time frame, and he's a very different player. But if you're 7'3" and you've got a modest level of skill, and he's got a better than modest level of skill, that's one thing that's already emerged, is that the skill set side is quite good, and he's 7'3". He will elicit interest from every other league globally at some point, if he does the work, if he becomes a better player, and if he's prepared to dedicate himself to the game. And that's going to be what the coaches are going to challenge him to do.
Hindi rin alintana ni KAI Sotto kung hindi man siya nakaranking sa mga NBA mock draft dahil para sa kanya sapat na ang mga naipakita niyang aktual na performance sa NBL upang patunayang kaya nito makipagsabayan maging sa NBA. Kung matatandaan, ang mga kasama nga nito sa Ignite na sina Jalen Green at Jonathan Kuminga ay nasa NBA at nagpapakitang gilas na. Sa pagsisimula ng 2022 NBA draft na tinatayang mula Abril hanggang Hulyo, inaasahang tapos na ang 2022 NBL season kaya sapat na din ang isang season ng pagpapakitang gilas ni KAI Sotto upang pumalaot na sa NBA. Kung meron mang mga dapat ma-improve si KAI Sotto sa kanyang laruan sa NBA niya na iyon, makukuha. Ano ba naman ng isang pro player na papasok ng NBA kumpara sa isang galing college lamang, di ba? So practically speaking, sapat na ang kaalaman ni KAI Sotto upang makipagsabayan sa NBA. Taong 2013 nang magpa-draft ang nooy 19 years old na si Giannis Antetokounmpo ng Greece at niwala nga sa top 10 ng draft class ng mga panahong iyon at sa ibang mock draft ay wala nga siya sa top 60. Ngunit si Giannis ngayon ay isa ng champion at MVP at sinasabing pinakamahusay ngayon sa NBA ayon mismo kay Shaquille O'Neal. Isang sikat na programa ng ESPN na The Jump sa Australia na pag-usapan ng isang host at dalawang dating NBA veterans na sina Leonard Copeland at Andrew Gaze ang tungkol sa ating pambato at sa bibig na mismo nila nanggaling ang pagsang-ayon na kayang-kaya ng isang KAI Sotto ang makipagsabayan sa NBA. Mga dating NBA player na mismo ang nagsasabing madadraft si KAI. Isang dahilan di umano kung bakit malaki ang pag-asa ni KAI Sotto na madraft ay sa dahilang may height at skill set ito na bibihira sa mga nagpapadraft. Karamihan di umano sa mga draftee ay mga guards kung kaya mas matindi ang kompetisyon kumpara sa mga sentro at lalong-lalo na sa mga 7-footer na gaya ni KAI na mas kailangan ngayon ng mga NBA teams.
Now this one's for Copes because I know he wants to talk about this man who's been making waves in the NBL, and I'm talking about KAI Sotto, of course, from the Adelaide 36Ers. Coach CJ Bruton said yesterday he has what it takes to play in the NBA, and it's not a case of if, but when. And certainly he has been excellent. Copes, your thoughts? Is he NBA ready?
He is. He's big. He's strong. He can shoot the ball from the outside, and he's aggressive. I love the fact that when you put him in the game, he goes right at the basket. You know, and the best thing about him is he has a lot of followers. He's from the Philippines, and they eat, sleep, and breathe basketball over there. So he's a superstar in the Philippines, and I think he will do quite well. Give him a shot. I think he'll do well in India.
Well, he's still got a lot of developing to do, and there's certain parts of his game that he would concede he's got to work on, and also his physical development and his conditioning. But right there is a good sign. When in the dying moments, big basket to step up, and those big guys, when it comes to the NBA, they're always going to get a look. You know, I remember my dad used to say when the start of practice and you're bringing in the guys, the big guys, you've got 12 months to show me what you can't do. Little guys, you got me one session to show me what you can do. So the NBA have that same sort of mindset when it comes to those big guys that are skilled. So he's going to get a look, and I think that he'll get an opportunity at some stage.
He's still, I think, outside the top 60 in those projected NBA drafts. I think King's sort of ahead of him in those ranks, Kane.
Yeah, he struggled for minutes early in the season, so this is kind of a benefit of Isaac Humphries missing some time for the 36ers. He's come into the rotation, had a couple of double-digit scoring games. We saw the followers on that graphic there, 298,000 Instagram followers, similar to you, Gazy, but...
Way more than us, Kane.
But he actually had 156,000 views on his highlights on the NBL YouTube, the ESPN Australia YouTube page.
He's more famous than you guys. He's more famous than you.
Maybe, he might be.
I know you don't like it. I know you don't like it, bro.
No, he's certainly doing some exciting things and bringing a lot more fans to the NBA.
Naasahang makukuha si KAI Sotto sa second round ng NBA draft base na rin sa mga pagtantya ng NBA draft room pang 103. Pero sabi nga ni KAI, wala siyang pake kung anumang ranking niya sa mga mock draft Dahil sa performance niya, di umano na ipapakita niyang aktwal ang kanyang kakayahan sa court kung saan ay napapansin na din naman ng mga NBA scouts. Kaya patuloy lamang nating abangan ang mga susunod na laban ni KAI Sotto sa Adelaide 36Ers sa kasagsagan ng NBL 2022 season. Inaasahang kauna-unahang purong Pinoy ni KAI Sotto na papasok sa NBA sa kasaysayan. So, yun lamang muna ang update natin mga idol tungkol sa ating pambato, at kung kayo ay may sariling opinion sa tinalakay natin, komento nyo lamang po yan sa ibaba. Pag-usapan po natin. Salamat sa pagbisita sa ating munting channel at sa bagong subscribers. Salamat din po sa inyo. Yay! This has been your host Alex saying na bye-bye. Keep safe at God bless.